Hey guys, John V from PhoneArena here. You're watching our video comparison between the HTC One Mini 2 and the HTC One M8. It's really lovely that HTC didn't waste any time in bringing to market the HTC One Mini 2. It's arriving a little bit over a month after the release of the HTC One M8, so consumers have some flexibility in what they want to go with. The single most major difference here in terms of design is just the smaller, more compact look of the HTC One Mini 2. Yeah, they both feature the same unibody brushed aluminum finish, giving them a nice premium quality. However, the HTC One M8 just has more metal with its construction just because the aluminum wraps around the sides of the phone, whereas with the HTC One Mini 2, it has this polycarbonate siding accent that runs the outside of the handset. Other major differences between the two is the fact that the HTC One Mini 2 lacks an IR blaster, so it doesn't double as a universal remote. And in the rear, you have a beefier 13 megapixel camera in comparison to the 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera with that secondary camera with the M8. Aside from that, everything else is identical with these two. So on the right edge, you have their volume controls and their nano SIM slots, micro SD slots on the left edge, and finally, there are micro USB ports on the bottom edge, but with the M8, you also have the 3.5mm headset jack as well there, whereas on the Mini 2, it's on the top edge. They also pack along the same dual front-firing speakers with HTC Boom Sound, and you also have wide-angle 5-megapixel front cameras. Obviously, the other noticeable difference is the screen size. You have a smaller one in the HTC One Mini 2. Specifically, the HTC One Mini 2 flaunts a 4.5-inch 720p display, whereas HTC's flagship has a larger 5-inch 1080p display. Naturally, the HTC One M8 has the sharper, more detailed display, but honestly, it's not that bad at all too either with the Mini 2. Since they both employ Super LCD 3 displays, they have very similar characteristics. For starters, they have pretty much the same brightness output, so no issues whatsoever viewing them outside. And when we look at them from the front, they produce the same punchy color tones, so very vibrant, but the M8 has better viewing angles. As you can see here, it just maintains its clarity better. For example, the color black tends to have a milkier tone with the One Mini 2's display. Taking a peek at the software running on both phones, it's the same one. You have the HTC Sense 6.0 user interface running top of Android 4.4.2 KitKat. Therefore, the visuals and most of the functions are identical here. Very clean looking modern UI. If you swipe all the way to the right, the leftmost home screen panel, you have the HTC Blink feed, so you have your social networking integration right there. But there are some other key differences between the experiences. The biggest one that's omitted with the HTC One Mini 2's experience that's featured on the HTC One M8 is the motion launch gestures. So what we don't have here is the various gestures we could use to access some quick peek functionality. For example, double tap on the screen, you're going to be able to quickly view the time, or if you swipe up, you can unlock the device and get back to your original place. Due to its more compact size, the HTC One Mini 2 is easier to type with one hand using the on-screen keyboard. That's mainly because our thumb is able to encompass the layout a lot more comfortably, whereas with the M8, we got to do a little bit more stretching. If you're a power user or big into gaming, you're going to like the HTC One M8 just because its processor is beefier. It's the quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 2.3 GHz Snapdragon 801 processor with 2 GB of RAM versus the quad-core 1.2 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 processor with 1 GB RAM in the HTC One Mini 2. And you can tell already how much more smooth the performance is with the M8. Seriously, the web browsing experience is great with both handsets, despite the fact that you have a sharper display and faster performance with the M8. The music players are identical on these two handsets. The only difference here is just the audio quality. You get robust tones out of them, thanks in part to their dual front-firing speakers, but you have a little bit more commanding presence and stronger output with the M8. You can't go wrong watching high-definition videos with either device, but if we had to pick, we're going to go with the M8 just for the obvious reasons here. It has the bigger display and sharper looking one too. We have two different cameras here. The HTC One Mini 2 has the larger 13 megapixel camera. It has only a single LED flash, whereas with the HTC One M8, it features the 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera with dual LED flash, and you have that secondary camera that takes depth information. The only difference here is just the dual effects that you gain with that secondary camera on the M8. Serious shutterbugs are going to gravitate more towards the HTC One M8 just because it takes photos faster than the HTC One Mini 2. On top of that, you have more shooting modes as well. You gain things like dual capture, the panoramic 360, and the Zoe camera there too. But nevertheless, you still have the same level of manual controls on board with the two of them. Okay, so what's the verdict regarding their camera quality? Now, as we know, the HTC One M8, its biggest flaw is by far details. It was lacking in that area, but with the HTC One Mini 2, HTC has managed to fix that just because looking into the shots, there's no denying that you get a lot more fine detail with the HTC One Mini 2's camera. So with that, you have more flexibility in being able to crop things. However, at the end of the day, we still like the HTC One M8 more just because you have the various duo effects, which gives us that professional-like finish to our photos. And on top of that, it performs better under lower lighting conditions. The images themselves just tend to be a little bit more brighter tone to expose the details. However, when it comes to shooting 1080p video, we can't say that we greatly prefer one over the other. They're pretty much average in the greater scheme of things. Details are good on both, but nothing too astounding to the eyes, and they also shoot smoothly at 30 frames per second, so we're kind of digging the two of them in this area. Thanks to their powerful earpieces and speakerphones, we don't have any issues trying to make out voices. They're more than audible, so noisy environments, you're going to be alright with that, but we still prefer the HTC One M8 just a little bit more, partly because voices tend to have a clearer tone to them. In standard practice, the HTC One Mini 2 sees a lower price point than the HTC One M8. That's fitting, of course, because you're going to get a smaller, more compact handset with some reduced specs. Now, if you're all about saving money, you're probably going to want to stick with the HTC One Mini 2, just because when it's released here stateside, you can expect it to be priced around $100 with a 2-year contract. On the flip side, if you don't mind dishing out the extra money and picking up the HTC One M8, you're going to get that premium smartphone with the full HTC experience. So that includes things like the IR blaster, the motion launch gestures, and of course all the different duo effects of its camera. So if you guys want to learn more about either device, you could check out our website, PhoneArena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.